Several weeks back, on an ordinary Thursday morning, I found myself immersed in the whirlwind of our daily routine, preparing our two children for school. At 7:30, the tumult was momentarily pierced by the sharp clang of the phone ringing. A sense of curiosity washed over me as I pondered who might be calling at this unearthly hour. An unfamiliar code flashed on the caller ID, stirring my curiosity even further. "Greetings," I responded with care, pressing the phone against my ear. To my astonishment, it was Claire Whitman, my wife, who greeted me from the other end of the line. A sense of curiosity washed over me as I pondered the reason behind her call, especially since we had just conversed the previous night. Claire Whitman is employed at a modest marketing firm, and her call instantly captured my interest. I manage the care of our children and handle my work from home, while she is constantly on the go, employed at a printing company in the heart of our town. Even with our varying schedules, we found a rhythm that suited us, allowing us to carve out a respectable living. In our charming suburban abode, complete with 4 inviting bedrooms and a refreshing swimming pool, we are truly blessed to enjoy a vibrant community of friends. Claire Whitman recounted to me that the night before, as she ventured into the hotel lobby to retrieve a newspaper, her purse was taken from her. Kindly proceed with the immediate cancellation of our credit cards and initiate the urgent request for new ones. I have already notified Megan, my supervisor, regarding this matter, and she will ensure that new American Express Company cards are dispatched to me overnight, allowing me to have them in hand before my departure tomorrow. She will also be sending some funds to support me during this time. My wife remarked, her voice tinged with concern, "You're typically quite careful with your possessions. Could you please provide some clarification on what transpired?" Unfortunately, I found myself a tad distracted and inadvertently left my purse at the cashier's counter as I stepped away to collect additional reading material. Upon my return, it had vanished without a trace. The cashier remarked that she was engaged with another customer and failed to observe anything out of the ordinary. Among the items lost, my driver's license was included, prompting the hotel to send staff to scour the nearby dumpsters. I sincerely hope they find it. Otherwise, I may find myself dependent on a taxi for today's meeting. There's no need for concern. I will attend to the credit cards without delay. I sincerely regret my oversight, my dear. With a mere $200 in my wallet, I can only hope we won't encounter any further expenses. We can gradually replace the other cards. Thankfully, the majority of my makeup remains in the room, ensuring I'm ready for the morning presentation. How are the little ones faring? I long for the moments when we were united as one. Allow me to narrate the events that unfolded approximately 6 weeks prior. Fortunately, I managed to cancel the credit cards before any unauthorized charges could occur. Yet, the wallet that held my driver's license and various non-credit card items remained unrecovered, prompting me to set that worry aside for the moment. Life flowed on in its familiar rhythm, yet I find myself compelled to share something significant. Today, I stumbled upon a statement from Claire Whitman's Fidelity account, where she oversees a distinct investment fund stemming from the inheritance she received following her parents' tragic accident a few years back. I have always honored her privacy regarding this account, however. While I was looking for our home insurance policy, I unexpectedly came across a folder filled with monthly statements from her personal account. As I reflected on the inheritance, which had reached approximately $350,000 after her parents' demise, a curiosity stirred within me about how much it might have increased since then. To my delightful astonishment, it had grown to exceed $400,000. Upon reviewing the statement, I observed a withdrawal of $3,000 from the money market account approximately 6 weeks prior. Intrigued by her use of that money, I resolved to explore further into her money market account. To my surprise, I found out that she had penned a significant check to a nearby jewelry store merely days after misplacing her purse in the very same city. A curiosity stirred within me as I pondered the treasures she might have acquired from that jewelry store. She had not alluded to purchasing anything for me, nor had I overheard her speaking of acquiring jewelry for anyone else. Even though she has a brother, I found it difficult to understand why he would need a $3,000 gift. After a moment of reflection, I resolved to sit at my computer and explore the jewelry store's website. I noted their phone number for future reference. With a steady hand, I reached for the phone and entered the digits of the jewelry store's number. A woman presented herself as a representative of the store and asked how she might assist. Upon sharing my name and detailing the transaction in question, I conveyed that we had faced a problem with the purchase and were curious about the existence of a store warranty. She began her search for the transaction on her computer, then asked about the specifics of the issue concerning the rings. For a fleeting moment, I was enveloped in curiosity, contemplating the nature of the rings she might have acquired. Fortunately, the woman on the phone quickly clarified, "Oh, I remember this purchase." Upon her arrival at our store, it was clear that she was in a state of distress, as she recounted the unfortunate incident of her wedding and engagement rings being stolen. Her desire to replace them unfolded into a rather formidable challenge. As we explored various options to fulfill her requirements, she utilized the company's credit card as collateral and subsequently provided us with a check to settle the expenses. In light of your concerns regarding the rings, I want to reassure you that our store offers a 90-day warranty to address such matters. Could it be that the diamond setting has loosened over time? This situation is quite puzzling, as she discussed the idea of replacing the wedding and engagement rings, yet she never suggested that they were lost. Her only reference was to the theft of her purse. It required a moment for me to fully absorb this new information. "Listen," I communicated to the woman on the phone, "I must discuss this with my wife before proceeding with any further decisions. I shall return to you at a later time." With that, I took my leave of her. Though she seemed slightly confused, my own sense of bewilderment was far more intense. It was becoming ever more evident that the rings ought to have been tucked away in her purse when it was taken from her. Yet, what could possibly motivate her to keep them in her purse if she had no desire to hide her marital status from those around her? As far as I am aware, there were no professional limitations concerning the disclosure of one's marital status. Yet, if she sought to project an image of being single in certain social settings, unsettling notions began to swirl in my thoughts, hinting that she may have entertained thoughts of forming a connection with someone during her time away. The very thought of it sent a wave of unease through my gut. After 11 years of marriage, we were graced with two remarkable children, Logan, who is 7, and Aubrey, who is 6. I was convinced that our marriage was without blemish in our family, an ideal portrait of happiness. Our personal life appeared to be fulfilling, or so I had convinced myself. Once a month, she embarked on journeys, spending 2 or 3 nights in far-off cities. Should she have nurtured ambitions of that nature, she may have perceived it as a subtle chance. The loss of the rings appeared to weigh heavily on her, prompting her to seek out replacements that mirrored the originals with striking fidelity. The rings I acquired were a reflection of my humble earnings, not overly lavish, and creating a close imitation didn't require a significant expense. She might have chosen to inform the insurance company about the loss, yet I likely would have uncovered the truth regardless. If her purse was truly taken at the hotel, she ought to have reported it. I found myself pondering what she asserted is absent. I took it upon myself to find the hotel's contact number and placed the call. I inquired about any documentation pertaining to the theft of my wife's purse. To my astonishment, they acknowledged possessing a documented record of the event. I asked for a copy to be faxed to me, and it arrived promptly. The report was meticulously crafted and personally signed by Claire Whitman. Claire Whitman recounted that her purse was taken from her while she was lost in the rhythm of the dance floor. She had forgotten her purse at the booth where she had been seated, and when she returned, it was nowhere to be found. Notably, Claire Whitman expressed her reluctance to engage the police. As I took in this information, my mind began to whirl. Overcome by the weight of my discovery, I realized she had misled me not just by hiding the truth about the stolen rings, but also by fabricating a tale of shoplifting. Though an alternative explanation might exist, my thoughts remained trapped in a tempest of unsettling notions, unable to conjure anything else. It was evident that I had to delve into the meaning behind the loss of those rings, for if I didn't, they would continue to haunt my mind and lead me to the brink of insanity. It became increasingly clear. The rings lay nestled within her purse as she twirled and swayed with a stranger on the dance floor. Weeks had passed since the incident, and she was preparing to set off on another journey in just a few days. I came to the conclusion that I must collect additional information regarding the itinerary for her forthcoming journey. I sought to understand her usual activities during the evenings beyond the confines of our home. Should she have been entangled with other men, it's possible that the loss of the rings acted as a catalyst, urging her to reflect on her actions. I was deeply aware that discovering her breach of trust would likely mark the end of our relationship, yet I remained mindful of how it might affect our children. She was undeniably a wonderful mother, yet the idea of her having custody of the children weighed heavily on my mind, particularly given her regular business trips. My thoughts surged, fervently searching for any possible hints that might illuminate her loyalty. What additional details could suggest her behavior during her travels? Did she take precautions when interacting closely with others? I presume she would choose to prioritize safety, as the thought of introducing infections or the chance of an unplanned pregnancy would surely weigh on her mind. Ultimately, I underwent a vasectomy following the arrival of our second child, making pregnancy an impossibility. She knew she couldn't depend on the men she encountered to have protection, so she must have ensured she had her own supply. A single question lingered in the air. Where did she hide them? The prospect of her having stashed them at our house or in the car seemed improbable, leading me to conclude that the office was the most plausible location. It is likely that she took them along on her business travels. She always carried her work papers, laptop, and presentation materials in a sizable briefcase that resided in her office. However, if she had a flight scheduled for the early hours, she would take her bag home the previous evening and subsequently pack it into a suitcase for the airport. This detail proved to be pivotal. I sought a moment to examine the briefcase prior to her leaving. I wished for her upcoming journey to feature an early morning flight. I consciously opted to maintain my tranquility and poise, ensuring that no indication of anything being wrong was evident. When the children came home from school, I found myself engrossed in other activities, leaving scant time to ponder my doubts. Yet, the weight of her broken trust lingered heavily in my mind. Upon Claire Whitman's return from work, I discovered myself entangled in quite the predicament. As I was in the midst of preparing dinner, a dish of beans slipped from my grasp, cascading onto the floor and leaving a chaotic mess in its wake. The aftermath of tidying up and overseeing the children's activities rendered me rather disheveled. Luckily, she appeared oblivious to any strange actions on my part at that moment. Once the chaos had subsided and the remnants of the turmoil were tidied away, I leaned in and bestowed a gentle kiss upon her cheek. We gathered around the table, as was our custom, to savor dinner and partake in our usual light-hearted conversation. Considering our typical pattern, I was taken aback by the notion that she might harbor any burgeoning doubts regarding her impending journey. "Ah, so you're preparing for yet another adventure in just a few days?" I inquired. "Indeed," she responded, her tone lacking any real fervor. "It's the familiar cadence of life. I find myself lacking enthusiasm for it." My inquisitive nature drove me to explore further. "If this isn't bringing you joy, have you thought about exploring other opportunities? Your tenure with the company has afforded you a deep insight into the multifaceted nature of its operations. It seems to me that you possess the ability to adjust to nearly any role." She expressed her wish to acquire additional experience prior to moving into a desk job. Yet, I softly invoked her sense of responsibility concerning the children. "I truly feel your absence when you're away," I added, seeking to stir a hint of remorse. "I understand," she replied with a tone of empathy. "I long for all of you as well." I pressed on in search of further information. "So, where are you off to this time? Are you planning to leave in the morning, allowing us a moment to share some time together before you go?" I met her eyes, acutely aware that our children were within earshot. Though I endeavored to maintain an air of normalcy, the turmoil within me was unmistakable, my stomach growling in protest, rendering the act of eating a formidable challenge. Her demeanor suggested that all was well, reflecting my own response. I pondered whether she was grappling with stomach troubles, yet it became clear that her meals were devoid of any real pleasure. Though my doubts may have been baseless, the compulsion to delve into her briefcase remained, as it might unveil the truth of her allegiance. She mentioned that she would be leaving for Denton tomorrow morning at 7:30. "I require a little something to sustain me until my return on Friday," she remarked with a playful glint in her eye, accompanied by a wink. I replied with a similarly light-hearted tone, aiming to preserve an air of normalcy. To my astonishment, she flushed at my words. Her remark regarding taking her briefcase home the night prior to her trip implied that she would bypass the office before making her way to the airport. Considering her seemingly sincere demeanor regarding the forthcoming trip, both in front of our children and myself, One could easily conclude that either she had not behaved inappropriately during her travels or had become exceptionally discreet. As I delved into the contents of her briefcase, I yearned to unveil the truth hidden within. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the world, Claire Whitman arrived home, her heart buoyant with anticipation for the journey ahead. She slid her car into the spot beside mine in the garage, her excitement palpable as always. This made me ponder whether her enthusiasm stemmed from our discussion, or if there was some other motive at play. As she stepped into the house, she left her briefcase behind, believing it remained in the car. Engaged in the art of dinner preparation, we eventually settled at the table. She nonchalantly inquired whether I could fetch her suitcase from the garage once we had finished our meal. Of course, I responded, making an effort to mask any hint of doubt. Have you prepared everything for your journey? She inquired, seeking to offer me comfort. Indeed, it's a familiar journey. The briefcase rests in the car, poised for the adventure ahead. I shall prepare an overnight bag, ensuring it contains all the essentials. In a bid to preserve a semblance of normalcy, I asked, do you have any plans while you're away? We will maintain our regular daily routine throughout the week, just as we always do. Perhaps we could organize a family-friendly activity for the weekend? She responded with palpable excitement for the concept. That seems like a solid idea. I replied with sincerity. Once we concluded our dinner, she graciously assisted me in clearing the table in the kitchen and loading the dishwasher. After we finished, she walked to the bedroom to gather her belongings, while I proceeded to the garage to fetch her suitcase. Upon examining the car, I discovered that the briefcase was not inside, which led me to conclude that it was safely stored in the trunk. Anticipating this, I had already crafted a strategy to gain access later in the evening. Upon my return to the bedroom, suitcase in hand, I nonchalantly inquired, do you happen to know where the car keys are? It appears that my tire is gradually deflating. If I bring it to the station, Jake Miller will be able to repair it immediately. For a fleeting instant, a look of confusion crossed her face, but soon she retrieved her purse and extended the car keys toward me. She suggested another option, inquiring, couldn't you simply use the spare tire? Is it intended for emergencies? With unwavering determination, I replied, yes, the spare tire is indeed meant for emergencies, yet we have ample time to address this issue properly. I believe that is the most prudent path to take. I rushed back to the garage, eager to return before she could reconsider. With a sense of urgency, I maneuvered her car out of the garage and made my way to the junction station that belonged to my old friend Jake Miller from school. As I arrived at one of the service bays, I gave a quick honk of my horn to catch his eye. Jake Miller caught sight of me and swung open the bay door, permitting me to glide in before sealing it shut behind me. What's happening, my friend? Jake Miller inquired. With a hint of curiosity, I responded, my tire was meant to be repaired here, but I required a moment to look into something else. Noticing a hint of concern in my demeanor, he inquired, everything all right at home, my friend? Perhaps, I conceded, hesitantly lifting the trunk lid and extracting Claire Whitman's briefcase. I set it down on a nearby workbench and turned the lock. Jake Miller, sensing a customer's need, calmly replied, well, I've got a customer, so take your time, my friend. With a nod toward Jake Miller, he made his way back to the quaint shop adjoining his station. I commenced my careful examination of the briefcase, taking great care not to disrupt a single item within. My hands wandered over the pockets of the lid, almost absent-mindedly, until a surprising find caught my eye as I pulled it free. My heart sank as I came across personal items she may have taken for precaution, noticeably partially used. My deepest anxieties were validated. With meticulous attention, I returned the package to its original resting place and secured the briefcase once again. I tucked it away in the trunk and fastened it securely just as Jake Miller came back. Were you able to uncover what you sought? What is happening? He inquired with a clear sense of intrigue. Indeed, I must admit, I responded. My voice carried a blend of disappointment and sorrow. Would it be all right if I linger here for a while longer? Maybe you could take a moment to check the tire pressure while I feign having solved the problem. Jake Miller cast a curious glance my way, yet he complied in silence. He was, without a doubt, a steadfast companion. As he focused on the tire pressure, I maneuvered out of the bay and parked at a gas station. I filled the tank with fuel, a lingering uncertainty hanging over me about when I might have the chance to do so for her again. As I journeyed back home, my mind brimmed with appreciation for Jake Miller's understanding. As I drove into the garage, a shroud of darkness wrapped around my thoughts, and the panic began to swell within me. Consumed by a whirlwind of anger and frustration, I struggled to comprehend how she could so easily betray our marriage, our children, and me in such a profound way. As the emotions began to fade, I redirected my attention towards mapping out my forthcoming actions. In order to obtain custody of our children, I required clear evidence of actions that contradicted our commitment. In spite of her flaws as a partner, I recognized her as a devoted mother. The children were in need of a nurturing presence in their lives. Though visitation rights would probably be awarded, my primary objective was to secure full legal custody. She must articulate the reasons for our divorce to her brother and friends. Upon stepping into the house, I announced from the bedroom, "Everything is ready. It was merely a small hiccup with a nail." "Okay, thanks," she replied, her gaze lingering elsewhere. In search of comfort, I made my way to the kitchen for a beer, and then found my place in the family room, where the kids were completely engrossed in their television show. Approximately half an hour later, Claire Whitman entered the room and settled beside me on the couch. In that moment, my emotions had found a semblance of calm, yet a profound sadness enveloped me as I came to terms with the fact that our once joyful family was on the brink of becoming a distant memory. To my astonishment, Claire Whitman drew nearer and nestled against me. With a soft murmur, she leaned closer and inquired, "Are you prepared for this evening?" After savoring a sip of beer, I responded, "I believe so, but I'm experiencing a stomach ache." Claire Whitman replied with a gentle tone, "Oh, that's too bad, dear." As Claire Whitman held on to me, her voice a gentle whisper, "I love you," I instinctively wrapped my arm around her shoulders, wrestling with a swirl of conflicting emotions. Even in the wake of her treachery, a trace of warmth lingered in her demeanor. It left me pondering the reasons behind her actions. Was it driven by a thirst for excitement or a longing for a deeper connection that I was unable to fulfill? Though I may never grasp the entirety of it, one thing stood out unmistakably: the harm inflicted upon my trust in her. As we tucked the children in for the night, she leaned down to plant gentle kisses on our little angels' foreheads. In that moment, I found myself gazing at her, acutely aware that by dawn, she would have vanished from our lives. Their youthful minds had grown familiar with her constant journeys, resulting in only a slight sense of unease. That night, we shared an intimate moment, yet it felt devoid of the familiar fervor. Noticing my unease, Claire Whitman inquired with concern, "Is your stomach still troubling you, dear?" I nodded and responded, "Yes, but I can manage it." With a heart full of longing, I inquired, "Do you truly need to embark on this journey?" hoping she would prioritize our love and marriage instead. In the depths of my soul, I longed for it all to be nothing more than a fleeting nightmare, destined to dissolve into nothingness. With a soft sigh, she responded with an air of regret, "I'm sorry, darling, but this journey is essential. I will strive to conclude matters and make my way home at the earliest opportunity. I eagerly anticipate the weekend spent in your company." With a weighty heart, I exhaled softly and murmured, "All right, dear, it's time to rest. Rising early is essential for your flight. I shall indulge in a swift shower now, sparing myself the concern of it come morning." "Very well," I responded. As she entered the shower, a sudden urge compelled me to delve into her suitcase and uncover the contents she had chosen to bring along. While the garments on the surface appeared professional, I was taken aback to discover, upon further inspection, a collection of her most alluring lingerie and a sleek black cocktail dress that rendered her utterly captivating. With a mindful regard for her personal space, I gently restored each item to its rightful place, secured the suitcase, and made my way back to bed. That night, sleep eluded me, and as the clock approached 5 in the morning, I heard Claire Whitman moving about. I stayed in bed, opting not to say goodbye. In keeping with our tradition, a blend of fatigue and melancholy washed over me. Bending down to plant a gentle kiss on my cheek before departing, she asked, "Still not feeling well, honey?" I merely nodded, grappling with the chaos that churned inside me. As the garage door creaked shut, I finally rose from my slumber and ambled toward the shower. The day that lay before me promised to be fraught with obstacles. Once I had seen the children off to school and enjoyed a quiet breakfast, I picked up the phone book to seek out private detective services listed in the yellow pages. I sought an agency that boasted a nationwide presence, ideally situated in the city where Claire Whitman was destined to go. After contacting multiple agencies, I ultimately discovered one that had a presence in her destination area. I arranged a meeting with them for that very morning, anticipating they would share the essential information. My next task was to seek out a divorce attorney. A friend had suggested a particular lawyer, so I sought out his contact information and placed a call to him. I scheduled a meeting for the afternoon, with the hope that this lawyer would lead me through the daunting journey that lay ahead. Upon my arrival at the private investigator's office, I laid bare my concerns and made arrangements for Claire Whitman to be observed on the night she would be absent. I shared a photograph of Claire Whitman along with the specifics of her travel route to assist in their identification. They promised to collect photographs and assemble a report detailing her activities once her business day came to an end. In a bid to facilitate smooth communication, they reached an agreement to dispatch information through email to their Denton office, assuring the delivery of a detailed report by Monday morning. Content with their dedication, I proceeded to make a significant initial payment. In advance of their services, they conveyed that capturing photographs might pose a challenge, yet they would endeavor to deliver as many compromising images as they could. I concurred that it would be adequate. The afternoon meeting with the lawyer unfolded just as I had expected. He elucidated that in our state, divorce adheres to a no-fault principle, indicating that there is no necessity to attribute blame. Nonetheless, considering my role as the main caregiver for our children, it is probable that custody will be awarded to me. It became imperative for me to grasp that Claire Whitman would be granted significant visitation rights concerning our children. Moreover, our property shall be apportioned equally, ensuring that each party receives a fair division of 50%. Given our comparable incomes, alimony might not typically be required. However, with my custody of the children, Claire Whitman would indeed be expected to provide financial support. The inheritance she acquired bore no weight in my eyes, and it was essential for her to keep it for her own sake. The foremost concern that occupied my thoughts was the welfare of our children. I directed the attorney to ready the essential documents for delivery to Claire Whitman on Monday. Due to irreconcilable differences, I requested that she consent to leave our home promptly following our divorce. The attorney affirmed that, in my role as the guardian of the children, I possessed the authority to submit this request. It was agreed that when the children turned 18, we would put the house on the market, and the profits would be shared between us. As I stepped out of the lawyer's office, a wave of contentment washed over me. I understood that life would continue to unfold for me and the children, while Claire Whitman would eventually face the results of her actions. In that instant, I refrained from taking prompt action regarding our finances, insurance, or any other legal affairs. I believed I would have ample opportunity to tackle these matters following the delivery of the divorce papers to her.